Welcome back. Now to electoral matters. There are busy days ahead for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. More than 3 months after the conduct of the 2019 general elections, the stage is now set for the electoral body to commence a nationwide post-mortem of the electoral process. Now, to make this easier for INEC, election observer missions have begun submitting and making public reports of their findings across different polling units during the election. The EU Election Observation Mission in its report noted that the polls were not transparent and were marred by several security and operational problems. By the way, the EU Observation Mission is actually the first to tender its report. Now, of the 30 key recommendations it presented, it prioritized 7, top of which is the need for a more transparent collation process. Take a listen now to the EU Chief Observer talk more about its findings.
Although INEC worked in difficult circumstances and made some improvements, such as simplifying voting procedures, a number of operational and procedural weaknesses identified by previous EU election observation missions were not addressed for the 2019 elections, in particular with regard to check and transparency in the result process. The EU EOM, therefore, recommend a strengthening of INEC procedures for the collation of results in order to improve integrity and confidence in the process. Second, and also in relation to the result process, we recommend that requirements are established for full results transparency, with data made easily accessible to the public. All results, including those from lower levels, could be displayed at collation centers. In addition, results from all collation centers could be scanned and published on INEC website by the time of the declaration of the final results. Third, we recommend a strengthening of the organizational and operational capacity of INEC. The postponement of the election clearly shows how important it is to improve planning for timely and accountable election preparations. We recommend that in the future it works more transparently and inclusively by holding regular consultation with political parties and civil society. We suggest also that security arrangements as well as rules of engagement, updates and complaints mechanism are all made public for more transparency.
Now, about 48 hours after that EU observers report, it was the turn of 2 US-based election observer organizations, International Republican Institute, IRI, and National Democratic Institute, NDI. In their reports, they also noted that the elections fell short of expected standards. The reports also contained a number of suggestions that they say could improve Nigeria's electoral process going forward.
Many of the recommendations that have been made in the past, including recommendations made by Nigerian-led initiatives, have not been implemented. And there is a sense that if these recommendations were implemented, they could improve significantly the conduct of elections in Nigeria.
Of course, in a show of appreciation, INEC Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu has assured that the Commission will study the findings and adopt the recommendations where necessary.
We have already embarked on our own internal reviews. Your report is coming at the right time. I wish to assure you that we will implement aspects of your recommendations that require administrative action by the Commission, beginning with the forthcoming Bayelsa and Kogi governorship elections scheduled to hold on the 16th of November 2019. We will also work with other institutions on aspects of their recommendations that require consequential action beyond the mandate of the Commission. For instance, where we need an amendment to the electoral legal framework, we will work with the National Assembly to do so. And where there are cross-cutting recommendations involving the work of other agencies of government, will also partner with those agencies and give expeditious consideration to your recommendation.
Now, as you can expect, the reports of the international election observers have actually been generating a lot of reactions. The main opposition, People's Democratic Party, has said the reports are a vindication of its position that the election, especially the presidential one, was rigged against it. A group with links to the PDP, also known as Concerned Nigerians, held a press briefing in Abuja over the past week as well, where they called on the INEC chairman to resign.
The report that is in public discussion today, the joy about it is the fact that it was INEC themselves that invited this body to witness the election, to supervise the election, to make their findings about the elections, and above it all, make their reports. The reports have been made. The report have indicted INEC. The report has indicted several agencies that form the components of governance. It therefore means ordinarily, in a system that works, the INEC chairman should have by this time resigned. He should have resigned and have taken the back seat for proper and thorough investigations to be carried out. Taxpayers' money and what have been spent in the conduct of election.
We wish to recommend that all elections be conducted in one day in 2023. I repeat, that all elections be conducted in one day in 2023. This will significantly help to reduce the rigging and destruction of ballot boxes, as we have found out that interests usually vary on election day. It will also help to reduce logistics problem and equally eliminate the national disruption that is usually associated with general elections in Nigeria. Our recommendation for a one-day conduct of the 2023 general elections is also inked on the fact that if we can conduct 3 elections in one day, we can as well successfully conduct 5 elections with no more than 2 additional staff recruited by INEC for ease of logistics on election day.
In its own reaction now, the Nigerian presidency welcomed the reports of the observers, adding that the reports are further confirmation and endorsement of the outcome of the presidential election, and that the reports did not in any way question the results of the election. On the recommendations, presidential spokesperson Garba Shehu in a statement said, quote, "The administration of President Buhari will work with all Nigerian citizens, state institutions, parties, civil society and the media and other experts to make sure that the improvements recommended by not just the EU now, by the EU are implemented, and that these areas of concern are actually addressed," end of quote. Now take a listen now to the reaction of the former spokesperson of the President Muhammadu Buhari Presidential Campaign Council, Festus Keyamo, who spoke shortly after the reports were released.
We know there were pockets of violence across the country, and these pockets of violence affected both the ruling party and the main opposition. The deficiencies that were mentioned, the drawbacks that were mentioned, also affected both the ruling party and the main opposition. Do not also forget that it is this imperfect system that we are talking about, this imperfect system that the main opposition wishes to spin to appear as if it is the fault of the ruling party. It's that same imperfect system that produced their governors in states where we previously controlled. So that imperfect system gave them Bauchi, that imperfect system gave them Adamawa, that imperfect system gave them Imo, that imperfect system gave them Oyo, and in the presidential election we lost even some states in our stronghold in the West. We lost about 1 or 2 states in our own stronghold. It is that imperfect system that gave them those victories. So when they try to spin the story to appear as if all of these reports of these international organizations, observers, are a domination of the ruling party, is a lie. It's actually a domination of every major player in the political system. But the most important thing about the report of the NDI and the IRI, if you read it line for line, is that at the end of the day, they did not dispute the eventual outcome of the election.
Now, we've also been speaking to an independent political analyst and former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Onyekachi Bani, for his own take on the reports. Here's what he's been saying.
It is important that we get the perspective of those that are non-Nigerians. I mean, you are talking about European observer mission who were here during the election in 2019, and they have looked at the election holistically and realistically have made their findings known and also their recommendation. And what have they said in their findings? They found out that the election itself was not transparent, and they said so. And they majorly blame two of the parties, the major parties, the APC and PDP. In some states where the APC held sway, where the state governors were in power, they complained the issue of lack of transparency in the electoral process. The same thing with PDP, where they held sway. I mean, I went home to go and participate in the electoral process, and I know the particular party that is in power in my state and what they did, and the entire thing was looking like complete a sham. And so if you, a Nigerian, say it, they feel that, oh, you are partisan, maybe because your party did not win, that's why you are, voicing out. So now that we're hearing from an independent, body, and they have looked at the election and they have made such complaint that lack of transparency actually beclouded the entire process, it's important that people would now, view it from the perspective of an impartial observer that has looked at the entire process and found it very culpable, and so that the recommendation they have made, we have to look at it and probably begin to implement it in order to get ourselves out of this particular mess we have always been complaining, because our thought is that the 2019 election would have been a general improvement upon 2015 election, because we nearly got it right in 2015, so there should have been an improvement. But instead of an improvement in 2019, we really went backwards, and then several years backwards in our electoral process, and it's not something we should be proud of. And so this time that an independent body has looked at it and is making this recommendation, I think we should take them serious and see what we can do to really get our electoral process right. I think there was a reason for, or there is a reason for issue of pre-election matters being handled by the Federal High Court or State High Court, because these are matters that actually is pre. It's not the election proper. The election proper is actually sui generis, and must be handled by a tribunal. It's an action in itself that is completely unique in every sense of it. And then the issue of timeline is also very critical, because the court has to decide the matter on time in order to ensure that we don't encroach on the tenure of a new person who would have been the elected person, but a wrong person declared winner. So to me, the way it is now is still okay. I mean, having pre-election matters being handled by Federal High Court, different from the tribunal. But what we should rather, impress upon is the process to be a bit fastened upon. It's a bit late. Most times, somebody can be in power for many years. All of a sudden, a pre-election matter comes up, and then the Supreme Court now says it's no longer supposed to be in that particular position. So I think the issue of timeline also must be emphasized, which is what is lacking in pre-election matters. But in election matter proper, which is before the tribunal, there is always a timeline, even though the timeline also is working at some level of injustice. Most time you don't have enough time in order to prove your case. All the witnesses you want to bring in, you don't have that time. And if that time elapses, then you can be technically knocked out of justice. So we must look at these issues in order to balance them up, But I don't see anything wrong with pre-election matter being handled by either the State High Court or Federal High Court. But specifically, election matter has been handled by the tribunal the way it is presently. But what we should now do to improve upon the pre-election matters is to ensure that we have a timeline also assigned to, in order to ensure that we finish it on time, rather than dragging up to a time that 4 or 5 years we are still, talking about an election that's supposed to have ended all this time. So it's important we put a timeline to the way we have put timeline on tribunal matters. And INEC need to have honest people. As much as possible, getting honest people that will work for them. A situation where you have virtually 800,000 ad hoc workers, and maybe you are a regular workers 16,000, does not augur well for INEC as a body. An electoral umpire that wants to carry out election itself that's supposed to be free, fair, and credible. Now you have more of the ad hoc workers and people that are not even well trained in the first place, people whose loyalty and patriotic acts you cannot guarantee. Their level of integrity is not, something you can also guarantee. So issue of the integrity of the electoral process starts with the personnel. If you don't get the right kind of personnel that will man the process, and they are people that are dubious, the people that you can easily compromise, then you have INEC running into problem. And that is actually what has happened several times in electoral, a journey we've been on, having people who are not honest running the electoral body. So we must have people that are honest, people that are patriotic, people who can do a background check of who they are. What kind of persons are they? Can they easily be compromised? If you don't get it right with the issue of personnel, then every other thing will not fall in line. So, and also we must try and improve the electoral process is by going more of electronics. And that is why we are not happy with the electoral amendment bill that was not signed into law. We must begin now to look towards electronics. Let all our process be electronically done, so that we can now get it a process that will be a bit of more have a bit of integrity in the process. For now, all this manual stuff leaves a lot of room for manipulation. Collation process is an issue. Collation process is an issue, especially at the polling unit. Now, even at the time you have collated and counted and announced, now the results can be rewritten between the time the election itself is announced, between the polling unit and the ward. You find out that things also happen at that particular instance where these guys can change figures. Between the ward and the local government also is another process. So it's a whole lot of process that I don't know what we're going to do to improve it. And I think electronics will do all that. If you have counted how many who have voted at the polling unit and that is transmitted to a particular server that cannot be manipulated upon, that its neutrality and its integrity is guaranteed, then we can be free from this collation process they are talking about. Most times, which human beings interfere and then manipulate in order to give wrong figures. So we must try as much as possible to look at what has happened in 2009 and say, where did we get it wrong? What are we going to do to improve on the electoral process? And what manner of method are we going to adopt? And I think that the world is now going towards electronics. Can we now use electronics? Even though I know that electronics can also be manipulated by human beings, but try as much as possible to eliminate the intervention of the human process, in the process, and see whether we can, get something that is a bit free from integrity questions. So I think it's something that we can, explore upon. Let the new house look at that amendment bill that the president did not sign of the 8th House, and look at how we can do more of amendment. Look at how we're going to improve the entire system, and then let the president sign it into law so that we go towards the way of electronics, in our electoral process. Maybe when we do it, we can be able to get it there. But above all, and I'm saying it here with every sense of responsibility, the moment we don't look at what public officers earn, what they get when they get into power. The moment what they get into power is, they get everything. They have access to the treasury. They have so much power. They have so much money at their disposal. They will never allow an electoral system that is free and fair, that is integrity ridden. They will do everything to manipulate, even when you use electronics. So can we look at, once again, the issue of accountability in our political office holders? Do they account? Do we monitor them? How often or how easy is it for them to have access to our treasury without any, checks and balancing? So we must do all these things so that when you reduce the issues, what they gain when they get into office, what they're entitled to when they get into public office. I tell you that those that will be coming to political office will be those who are coming to work, who have already, succeeded in their private enterprise, but are coming to public office in order to give, good governance to the generality of the people using state resources. They are not coming to steal. And as long as we don't get these right people coming to governance, those who are coming to come and steal will always manipulate the electoral system. So that's why we're having problems. So no matter how you want to sanitize the electoral process and make it a bit integrity reading, if you don't get the people who are coming to public office as men of integrity, those who are coming to work, those who are not coming to steal, and what they're entitled to is so much, they will do everything humanly possible to manipulate. Even when you go electronically, they will still manipulate the entire system. So to me, all these things we are recommending are, recommendations are good. But let's try as much as possible also to look at what people are, the reward system the way people come in and they are entitled to easy access to the treasury without any checks, without any balances in the system, it will make them to do everything humanly possible, sometimes wrongly, in order to get into public office. So despite all the recommendations, let's look at that angle. And I've said it here, if we don't get it right at that angle, I tell you that no matter what we've done at the electoral process, in order to get it, integrity, we will still have an issue because people will want to manipulate it because it's going to be operated by human beings. Despite the fact that we're going towards electronics, people will still be the one to tabulate these things at the end of the day and bring it out and announce. At the point of announcement, somebody can change the figures. So we must try as much as possible to get the entire hog right. And if we do that, we'll begin to run a country that all of us will be proud of because people who want to come into governance, we have them many here. We come for service. We have so many men of integrity. They don't have the money. They don't have the resources to contest election. The system itself shut them out. And they want to come and serve in the real sense of that word. But those who are not coming to serve but to steal, we have their money thrown in and then the entire system, they mess it up and then come in and put us into total confusion. And that's why the country remains the way we are. Other countries in Africa are getting it right now. Elections are being held in most of the African countries. And you hear that elections is credible, free from all these crises. But in our own case, we lost so many lives in the process. The military got involved. The security got involved. The ad hoc workers got compromised. The INEC officers who are even this thing got involved. Even the academics. A lot of people that we brought from the university, we thought with the academic, people from the academics is going to get better. It's even getting worse because they now go towards the academic and compromise them. Then when you now think that the judiciary will be the one to correct the entire thing, they have even compromised the judiciary. So we are running into a vicious circle that if we don't look at what we can do at the beginning, define what public officers should be entitled to, and reduce what they get when they come in, then you cannot get it right with the electoral process because whatever they will do to get in there, they will do it, including manipulating the electoral system.
Well, we have to wait and see if this report now would have any bearing at all with all the election petition cases that are going on across various tribunals in the country. And of course, do not also forget that, well, as a fallout of that election, we have about over 700 election petition cases now arising from the 2019 general election. So you could say it's one of the most controversial and contested election Nigeria has ever had. But then, as I said again, we just have to wait and see if some of these reports that are coming out now will have any bearing with those cases that are going on at the various election petition tribunals. Well, that's it on the program. But if you want to watch it again, it's very simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find this program and lots more there. You can also follow us on our various social media handles and continue to contribute to the conversation and, of course, follow our various programs. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Deji. I'll see you next week.